Hey, what's up, guys? This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and in today's video, I want to go ahead and talk about the number of lost Bitcoin and why it's so incredibly important for us to discuss the number of lost Bitcoin and go ahead and give an idea of how much that lost Bitcoin is worth and what the supply impacts would be compared to the demand that we've been seeing lately for the Bitcoin spot ETFs. But before we get to that, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to share this video and follow me on X. First, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin's current price action, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about the liquidation heat maps because there's something very important there that I want to point out to you guys. So Bitcoin lately has been kind of moving sideways, more or less. It's been just drifting here at about 51K or so, and it really hasn't been able to move above this this crucial resistance point of about 52.8 or so. I'm going to move this up just a little bit so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. This level right here at about 52.8, almost 53-ish, is extremely important because when we go ahead and take a look at the heat map, you're going to see just how much money is parked just above that resistance level. So this resistance level is going to be the next high watermark for Bitcoin, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at that resistance, that heat map here. The liquidation heat map, I have it set on the weekly here from CoinGlass. Now, CoinGlass is showing that there is an absolutely staggering number of shorts in that region, just at about 52,900. We're talking about $600 million worth of Bitcoin shorts sitting in this spot right here. And even when you take into account the other levels, it goes from 600, you have some here at 500, some here at about 480, and those are all at about between 52,800 and all the way up to about 53,000. So there is an absolutely enormous amount of short liquidity that's parked right between, I would say about like right here or so, about 52,000. 52,000 ish, 52,800 and 52,000 and 53,000, I would say, about this region right here. So this is really important, guys. And the reason why this is important is because every single time we've seen these large liquidations of shorts, we've seen the price just explode. All right, so if we back this out a little bit here, I'm going to show you what this looks like from a 3-month perspective. And so we're actually starting to see, again, just a massive amount here up in that region. And if we looked at the previous levels that we've seen of this massive amount of short liquidity, we can see here that, like, for instance, back in the turn of the year or so, maybe about the 1st or so of January, we saw a large liquidation take Bitcoin all the way from where it was about 42,800 all the way up to about 45,000. So we saw a huge increase in the actual price. So if Bitcoin does actually wind up going up above or around 53K, we could absolutely see some huge fireworks, massive liquidations, and we could actually wind up seeing shorts squeezed and the price move even higher. I think that could actually almost get us up to about 55,000 or so. So that's one thing to consider. But for now, Bitcoin is kind of moving sideways. RSI still set at about 75 or so. We're still overbought on the daily. And I do expect that eventually we're going to wind up pushing through these levels and we're going to wind up seeing 55K before too long. Now, the main story that I want to talk about today is the total loss of Bitcoin. Okay, so that is Bitcoin that is unable to be accessed, Bitcoin that has either had their private key, the original owner that has lost them, or for whatever reason it was sent to the wrong address. And so you may ask yourself, well, how much Bitcoin are we talking about here that could make up the current supply of Bitcoin on the market? And that's actually about close to 20 million. It's about 19,800,000 or so. So if we go ahead and take a look at this report done by Chainalysis, they actually decided that it's about 20% or so. And the way they set this up is they say that if Bitcoin hasn't moved in an address for 5 years or longer, they're considering it basically lost. And I think that's one way of looking at it. Personally, I would look at like 10 years, something a little bit longer than that. but they're saying basically about 20% according to Chainalysis. This was back in about 2020, so take this with a grain of salt, but that's one estimate of how much Bitcoin has been lost. Now, we also have this gentleman here, Timothy Peterson, CFA, who has said that by his estimates, 6 million of the 19.3 million Bitcoin has been lost. Now, again, this is back in March of last year. Take that with a grain of salt. But 6 million of 19.3 million has been lost. That's a pretty high watermark. Now, if you go ahead and take a look at Glassnode, and specifically, I found this on Glassnode alerts for on X. The number of Bitcoin that hasn't moved in the last 10 years or greater than 10 years is actually sitting at almost about 3 million. It's about 2.8 million Bitcoin. So we're starting to see kind of a region here. Usually, I'd say 3 million or so, 6 million or so Bitcoin that could be lost forever potentially. And so I've put this all together, and I'm going to show you guys my notes of how exactly this would affect the market. So if we take a look at the lost Bitcoin, now I have three estimates right here. I have either 15%, 20%, or 25%. And judging by those current levels, we can see at 15%, you're looking at almost 3 million Bitcoin, 20%, almost 4 million, and 25%, almost 5 million. Okay, just to be conservative. I like to be conservative with my estimates here. And so that would put it at 15%. You'd look at $150 billion worth of Bitcoin has been lost entirely, no longer accessible. 20% would put it at 200 billion, and 25% would put it at $250 billion worth of Bitcoin that is no longer accessible. This is Bitcoin that will not be coming back into the system, and this is a significant share. If it's 25%, it's a significant share of the total Bitcoin, okay? Now remember, there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin, and if 5 million or so of that Bitcoin has already been lost, this would be absolutely enormous. Now, to put this into perspective, there are currently $2 million worth of Bitcoin on exchanges. I've shown you guys this multiple times, and we take a look at our exchange reserve. All right, so those last numbers came in at about 2 million or so of Bitcoin on exchanges, and so you can kind of see that this is actually a larger amount of Bitcoin, even on the low estimates, than currently available on exchanges. Now, if you go ahead and you take into account what we talked about in our last video, which is a hypothetical framework on the price of Bitcoin based on the demand and the current supply, we said here that basically these Bitcoin spot ETFs are taking about 85,000 Bitcoin over the life of the inception of these ETFs. So that would be 85,000 Bitcoin in about a month and a half or so. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So it just really doesn't take rocket science to determine when you have a low supply and increasing demand, the price is actually going to continue to rise. All right. So the fact that we've seen it's 85,000 Bitcoin demand over about a month and a half, and this is something I think will continue to happen, then it's not hard to imagine the fact that this lost Bitcoin is actually going to continue to make Bitcoin scarce, and it's going to drive the price even higher. Okay, but just keep that in mind. $250 billion, or about a quarter or so of the total market cap, would be lost if those high water estimates are correct. All right. Now, a kind of a list of some of those Bitcoin wallets lost here by Bitcoin Jobs shows there are significant numbers of stolen coins, death, and dormant wallets as well. The noteworthy wallets list is by Satoshi Nakamoto's actual wallet himself or herself. They have a significant number of Bitcoin in that wallet that is apparently no longer accessible. That's actually one of the largest wallets on the blockchain. And then you also have there's a Mt. Gox wallet as well. There's Stefan Thomas's wallet, which is worth about 7,000 Bitcoin, and then the famous James Howell's wallet, which is about 8,000 Bitcoin. Now, James Howell's lost this hard drive in a landfill, okay, and who knows, he might actually be able to get a hold of it. We'll see if he doesn't or not, but this is just one example, and there's probably more of these that are even reported, of thousands and thousands of Bitcoins that are no longer accessible because of a mistake, or somebody died, or the keys got lost, something like that. And that kind of goes back into what I said here about lost Bitcoin starting to really accumulate. And, you know, people like to talk about the fact that we have 21 million Bitcoin, but, I mean, when you take into account the fact that up to 25% of those are lost and unavailable, it's even less. I mean, there's even less Bitcoin that's available. And as long as we see demand stay at the same level that it is currently, then Bitcoin, no doubt, is going to hit and surpass the all-time high. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about in today's video is what's going on this week in the economic reports. Really not a whole lot going on, to be honest here. Tuesday, U.S. leading economic indicators. Wednesday, we have some Fed governors speaking as well, and Fed presidents. And then the minutes of the FOMC. This is going to be pretty important, and this is going to be like a Rorschach test. People are going to look at it, and they're going to go, well, the Fed's hawkish, or, well, the Fed's dovish, just to push their own kind of viewpoints. So be aware that's going to happen. And Thursday, jobless claims, S&P flash services, and manufacturing PMI as well. You have some Fed governors speaking and Fed vice presidents speaking as well. Friday, nothing scheduled. All right, so it's actually a pretty lax week, but just be aware also that these Fed governors and Fed presidents can move the market, and they've done it before, and that honestly would not surprise me, especially if they're being particularly hawkish. All right. So let me know what you guys think about this. How many of you guys think is actually lost? Do you think it's like 15% or more on the 25%, or is it actually less or more than that? Definitely leave a comment below. Let me know, and I will catch you guys in the next video.